To avoid fainting, keep repeating, it's only a movie review. 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 Hey everybody, it's Drewski McGillicuddy, and this video has been a long time coming because we're finally going to talk about the 1972 Wes Craven classic, The Last House on the Left. Now before we get into the movie, I need to talk to you about my initial experience with the movie. I was 14, I was in 7th or 8th grade, and I was dating this girl where we would, call each other on the phone. Well, I called her one time and she was indisposed, so to speak. So me and her mom was, bullshitting, and her mom was a big horror fan, and she knew that I was a big horror fan, and she knew that I, liked all the Freddy Krueger movies. But she told me about Wes Craven's first movie, which is Last House on the Left. And she didn't really tell me anything about it. She said, but if you're a fan of Wes Craven, you have to go watch this movie, right? And here I am, this 14-year-old kid taking advice from a trusting adult that I should go and seek out The Last House on the Left, being 14 years old. Go out and get The Last House on the Left and watch it. So I did. I tried. I went all the blockbusters, because this was, you got to think 1996, 1997, something like that. And, I went all the blockbusters in my area. Nobody had it. Nobody there had ever heard of it. So, it was a bum rap. It was a bum rap. But here comes spring break, okay? And I was going on my, once in a while vacation to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And while I'm in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, we drop into the Blockbuster down there and we rent The Last House on the Left. Because by God, there it is on the shelf. I couldn't believe it. I got all ecstatic, started running around acting like a fool. Like, oh my God, look, they got it. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm finally going to get to watch this movie. That girl that I was talking to at one time, because you know how junior high relationships are, you date for 2 weeks and you move on to the next one. That's beside the point. Point is, I remember her telling me about this movie. I mean, she didn't say anything about it. Like I said, she just said, oh, if you're a fan of Wes Craven, you owe it to yourself. And this is before Scream came out, mind you. Yeah, well, no, I don't know. I don't know. So anyway, there I was at Blockbuster. I rented the movie, okay? We got back to where we were staying in Myrtle Beach, and I had taken a friend of mine from school, and he brought up some kind of bullshit. Oh, I don't like to watch scary movies before I go to bed. So naturally, I sat there and I watched The Last House on the Left by myself when I was 14 years old. Needless to say, I was highly disturbed after watching this as a 14-year-old, and I wanted to go take a pillow and just smother this asshole that said, oh, I don't want to watch scary movie before I go to bed. Little did he know this was not, I repeat, not your typical horror film, okay? Even by today's standard, I don't know. Because when I went into this movie, I went in blind. I had never seen the trailer. I knew nothing about it. I might have read the back of the cover. Who even knows what the back of the cover says? It says, to keep from fainting, keep repeating, it's only a movie. 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 Well, guess what? I didn't know that at the time. So after watching it, you could imagine, And the crazy thing is, you know how this movie is if you've seen it. It's got these brutal, fucked up, sadistic scenes of violence and torture, and then it cuts to these two buffoon-ass cops. Like, it just goes back and forth between... But we'll get into that. We will get into that because, let's start at the beginning, okay? Not everyone knows that before Wes Craven directed and wrote this movie, he wasn't big into horror. His family didn't allow horror in their house. He was like, I can't remember what religion or whatever, but they were strict and, they weren't the horror type family. He was a professor in college and some students or whatever had came to him and said, hey, or, some people he knew came to him and said, hey, we need a scary movie as a filler, like, for theaters back then, because, they would, don't worry about that. Don't worry about the fact that Wes Craven hadn't seen or been involved with any kind of horror until he had came up with this movie. And the crazy thing about this movie is, you go into a horror movie, you expect there's a killer stalking teenagers, which that kind of happens in this movie, but there's just something super real about this. Even with the corny 70s aspect of it, because like the parents, at the beginning of the movie, they're getting ready for the birthday party, and just every scene with the parents is just corny and highly 1970s. And then, even some of the scenes with the bad guys, it's just corny and very 1970s. But that aside, this movie still finds the way to just, do its job, so to speak, because up until this point, I had seen all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, I had seen all the Friday the 13th, and I ain't been scared by none of them. Okay? Even the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I'm not gonna lie, that movie got to me the first time I saw it, but nowhere near as much as Last House on the Left got to me. Like, this, I feel like it's the perfect story to be told about how, I didn't know a thing about horror, honestly, other than the big three franchise. That's one of the reasons that if you're in Killer Flicks, that horror group that I sometimes post in, or I am watching people constantly talk about fucking Halloween. But if you're in that group, this is why I don't like when people just talk about the same thing over and over again. Like, there are so many fucking movies out there that we haven't experienced. I don't want to get off track. But yeah, so let's get to the movie, shall we? So Mary Collingwood, it's her 17th birthday, and she's getting a lot of birthday cards. And, she's getting ready to go out for a night on the town to go see Bloodlust with her friend Phyllis, okay? And, she's supposed to be back in time. Her mom's decorating the living room. She's baking a cake. And, she goes off. And now her parents don't necessarily like Phyllis because she's, I think, older. And she's from the hood. So, and I'm assuming this is like upstate New York. It was filmed in Connecticut, but I'm assuming it's supposed to be upstate New York because they go to New York City for the concert. But while they're in New York City for the concert, they got a couple, about an hour to kill. So they figure they could score on some grass, some marijuana. So they stumble across Junior, which they don't know. Junior is this kid who's addicted to heroin because his dad wants to have mind control over him so that he'll do what he says when he says to do what he says to do. And then there's Weasel, Sadie, and Krug, and they are violent criminals. And yeah, it's pretty bad. So they approach Junior to buy some grass, and he's like, no, I don't know where to get that stuff. And then he's like, oh, yeah, I happen to have in my possession some Colombian. And they're like, ooh, Colombian, far out. So he takes them back to the house, and wouldn't you know it, he locks the door behind him, and then, like, this, like, first encounter is just horrific because it's like, you can see it happening. That's the thing about this movie. You can see this shit happening even today. Like, let alone back in the grimy, gritty 70s. Like, this could happen today. And I didn't want to bring up the fucking remake while I'm talking about this one, but my biggest problem with the remake is they over polished it and over like Hollywoodized it. Like, I know it's hard for, oh my God. Don't worry about that, okay? Just worry about the fact that even for its time, this movie still holds up somehow. Even with all the corny police and Ethel or whatever her name is with the chickens. Because yeah, everybody's seen this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, what are you doing with yourself? Okay? And now I know this movie's not everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody wants to watch the depictions of violence and rape that happen in this movie. Nobody really looks forward to watching that type of stuff, but there's just something about this movie that, you know, I don't want to say I don't get tired of watching it. I mean, but it'll always be relevant. This movie will always be relevant because basically, you know, I don't fucking know. I have no idea. I lost my train of thought again. But anyway, so there was basically backlash against this movie for obvious reasons, like people wanting to get in and destroy the footage in the projection booth, the actors getting like hate letters and death threats and all that stuff. And, you know, Wes Craven says in one of the interviews, you know, I didn't make this movie to glorify killing or anything that you see in this movie. This is to make a person see it and think, God, I hope I could never be capable of doing something like that. Or I, you know, would hate for that to ever happen to another human being. Because, yeah, the shit in this movie's like pretty fucked up, you know, even by today's standards. That's the thing. This movie was way ahead of its time. Nothing like this had ever been seen in a horror movie. Now, supposedly, Wes Craven said he had heard that another movie had used a chainsaw as a primary weapon in a horror movie. But before that, honestly, have you ever seen a chainsaw used in such a way until the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Because guess what? The Last House on the Left did it first. Okay? And the other thing, people talk about the music in this movie not being fitting. Well, I can kind of see some of the songs are a little quirky and zany. But if you listen to the lyrics, they're kind of, it's just fucked up. It's like they're morbid. Now, I love every single song on this soundtrack. So I don't really have a problem with the soundtrack. I mean, you got to understand, it's 1972. There's like, this is kind of music that there was. Like, I don't know what you would come to expect, but after reading some of the reviews and seeing some of other people's opinions, and people just have a problem with this soundtrack, which is one of the most phenomenal soundtracks. And the crazy thing is, it's fucking Krug, the main killer guy, singing all these songs. Because, you know, and that's the other thing. This guy had never acted before. And this was his first role. Now, Weasel, the guy that plays Weasel or Uncle Frank, he had been in movies with the actress that plays Phyllis, and I think they were adult films. So here's another messed up thing. The guy that plays Weasel was in adult films, yet this is the stain on his career. Like, he hates this movie. He thinks it's a piece of garbage. But, you know, it's just as relevant today, in my opinion, as it was 40 years ago, you know, because I'm sure stuff like this still, you know, we don't know. I'm sure they don't report it like they do the shit that they're constantly reporting. Shut up and listen, all right? Now, as sick and twisted as these villains appear to be in this movie, there is the point where they do what they do to Mary, and just they don't even really show anything. I mean, they show her laying on the ground and he's on top of her. They don't show nothing. like her struggling and the sound effects they show, but then it's just a close-up of his face on her face, and he's got a little bit of drool and slobber, and then when he's done, he gets up and like you see and it's just, god damn, for not showing anything, that's the worst thing I could have possibly seen. And then her reaction afterwards, she goes over and gives them this look like, and then she proceeds to throw up, you know, as you would. And that, at that moment, like, the villains have this look of disgust with themselves on their face. Like, they can't believe what they've just done. And, you know, they just murdered a girl too, but they didn't seem too remorsed about that. Plus, I'm sure that they did what they did to Mary the first night with Phyllis. Anyway, so then she goes and she walks down. It's like, is she trying to escape? Is she in shock? What's she doing? She just goes and walks into the pond, and he takes out the gun and he shoots her. And still, in this moment, you can see that they are disgusted with themselves. Now, I don't know if it's performance, because like I said, the guy that played David Hess, he had never performed before. He just, you know, wanted to be in a movie, and he showed up. And you got to wonder, is this a performance, or was he really disgusted with himself? I mean, they all say they had a ball on set, you know, except for the fact that Krug was mean to Mary in real life so that she wouldn't, you know, just the method acting or whatever. But the look on his face, I wonder if it's just like, I can't believe we're making this, you know, because like I said, Weasel, the whole time, he had a problem with it. He just needed a couple bucks, so he was in the movie. Anyway, what the fuck are we talking about? Jesus Christ. I've been rambling on. You know how I feel about this movie. This movie is a fucking masterpiece, and I don't know how to necessarily express what I'm trying to say, because like I see how it comes off like, oh, this guy likes rape movies. No, that's not it. Anyway, this is not one of those movies you put a number or a letter grade or anything like that on. You don't give it nothing like that. You watch it or you don't. This movie is either for you or it's not. I mean, the only negatives I really have with it is the sheriff. I cannot stand the sheriff in this movie. He just seems like the last person that would be a sheriff. But I get it. I get it. They, you know, they were making a fucked up movie and nobody wanted to fucking be in it. Like, half the actors in the movie read it and said, nobody's going to want to be in this shit. You know, nobody's going to even want to watch this shit. But look what happened. Everybody wanted to watch it. It was so popular that it's still relevant and popular. They even remade it, which, you know, I don't know if they did it. I can't say is that they did it justice. Now, I'm not saying the remake's complete garbage. I'm just saying it has nowhere near the effectiveness as the original. But we'll talk about that eventually sometime, maybe. Anyway, please, for the love of God, will you please let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Make sure you click the like button and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And tell your friends. Help me get these videos out there so the people will watch them, because, you know, I feel like I'm doing this for nothing. Oh, and there's a Patreon thing down there that you can sign up for, and it'll convince me to keep using this camera. And oh my God, is it still working? Because yeah, there was a movie review that I did that was real special, and it failed. The stupid fucking piece of shit stopped working halfway through, and I had to scrap the whole thing. And y'all have been waiting for that video. You don't know what it is, but you've been waiting for it. You've been wanting it since day one, trust me. But anyway, that's all the time we have for today. So please, do what I fucking said, or I'll come find you in the dark.